विविध चिंतन नाना विधि, बहुविधि कला प्रदेश की, अलग अलग पहनावा बोली, सुंदरता इस देश की। आप सबसे अनुरोध है कि आप अपनी अपनी जगहों पर बैठ जाइए, क्योंकि हमारा कार्यक्रम बस कुछ ही क्षणों में आरंभ होने वाला है। इतनी विविधताओं में भी एकता दर्शाने वाले हमारे भारत की सुंदरता और महानता इसीलिए कायम है क्योंकि इसे एक एक भारतवासी ने अपने दिल में एक विशेष स्थान दे रखा है। व्यक्ति और राष्ट्र का संबंध अटूट है। एक राष्ट्र तभी सशक्त और मजबूत बन सकता है जब हम इसकी गरिमा को बनाए रखते हुए सच्चे दिल से देश के बनाए सभी नियमों, कानूनों और व्यवस्थाओं का पालन करें और इसे अपने दम पर अच्छी सोच के साथ और भी विकसित, महान और आदर्श बनाएं। इसीलिए स्वतंत्रता के पश्चात समस्त राष्ट्र के निर्माण के लिए 26 जनवरी सन 1950 में भारत के कुछ प्रबुद्ध, राष्ट्रीयता से ओतप्रोत और देश के लिए समर्पित व्यक्तियों के सहयोग से भारत का संविधान गणतंत्र लागू हुआ था। और आज हम सब अपने संविधान का सम्मान करते हुए और उसका पालन करते हुए स्वतंत्र भारत के 67वें गणतंत्र दिवस पर पहुंच चुके हैं और कह रहे हैं कि प्रेरणा, जागरण और विश्वास का लौट आया समय, हर्षो उल्लास का। अपनी मंजिलें नई है, नए हैं रास्ते, ये सफर है उजालों के एहसास का। आज जिसने किया कल से बेहतर, पृष्ठ स्वर्णिम बनेगा वो कल के इतिहास का। हमारे सभी सम्मानीय अतिथिगण यहाँ पर पधार चुके हैं और इंतजार है तो हमारे मुख्य अतिथि श्री जगमोहन नाथ जी का, जो देशभक्ति की ज्वलंत मिसाल है और उनकी वीरता, बहादुरी और साहस के लिए उन्हें 2 बार महावीर चक्र से सम्मानित किया जा चुका है। और आज हम सबका बहुत बड़ा सौभाग्य है कि हमें उनके साथ ध्वज को, हमारे प्रिय राष्ट्रीय ध्वज को सम्मान करने का गौरव प्राप्त होगा। साथियों, थोड़ा सा पेशेंस बनाए रखिए, बस कुछ ही क्षणों में वो यहाँ पर आने वाले हैं और इस परिसर को पावन बनाएंगे। धन्यवाद। हंस हंस कर एक मस्ती लेकर जिसने सीखा है बली होना, हंस हंस कर एक मस्ती लेकर जिसने सीखा है बली होना, अपनी पीड़ा पर मुस्काना, औरों के कष्टों पर रोना, जिसने सहना सीख लिया है जीने का अधिकार उसी को, जो कांटों के पथ पर आया फूलों का उपहार उसी को। सम्मानीय मुख्य अतिथि जी को हमारा आदर, सस्नेह, अभिनंदन हृदय से।
I request our Chief Guest, Wing Commander Jagmohan Nath, to please come for the Guard of Honor, followed by the unfurling of our national flag. I request our Chairman, and all the SEL directors to accompany him. I hoisting.
इधर घूम ले चल
These all our internal security. Very well. What do you know? आपके निरीक्षण के लिए हाजिर हैं श्रीमान। Yes. Yes. Please or grandson थे ना राष्ट्रीय स्लोट स्लोट
Salute. Bishop.
During the 1962 Indo-China War, as flight commander of a Canberra squadron, he carried out a number of hazardous sorties by day and night in adverse weather conditions and in complete disregard of his personal safety. He displayed a high degree of professional skill and gallantry, and for that was awarded the Mahavir Chakra in 1962. During the 1965 Indo-Pak War, squadron leader Jm Nath, commanding a Canberra squadron, carried out several missions over enemy territory, entailing unescorted long-distance flying over well-defended enemy airfields and installations. He also brought vital information which enabled the Indian Air Force to deliver its attacks on target, the destruction of which greatly hindered the war effort of Pakistan. For his gallantry, he was awarded the bar to his Mahavir Chakra on 1st September 1965. We salute you, sir, for your selfless courage and service to the nation. We welcome you, sir, with a bouquet of flowers.
पल रुकते नहीं, ठान कर बैठे हैं वो, लक्ष्य पर उनकी नज़र धनुतान कर बैठे हैं वो। कामयाबी का सफ़र उनका कभी थमता नहीं, जो अडिग है जीत अपनी मान कर बैठे हैं वो। जी हाँ साथियों, मैं बात कर रही हूँ उन दिव्य प्रतिभा की जिनके आगमन से हमारा परिसर धन्य हो गया है। उनकी वीरता और आदर्श जीवन के बारे में जितना भी कहा जाए कम होगा, पर मैं अपनी लिखी कुछ पंक्तियों से उनके सम्मान में ज़रूर कुछ कहना चाहूँगी कि ये अनुगामी उन पावों के आदर्श लिए जो बढ़े चले, बाधाएं जिन्हें डिगा न सकी, जो संघर्षों में अड़े रहे। सर पर मंडराता काल रहा, करवट लेता भूचाल रहा, पर भारत के इस वीर सपूत का सच्चे वीरों में नाम रहा। महावीर चक्र से सम्मानित श्री जगमोहन नाथ जी वो हमारे हैं। आज के शुभ दिन उनको सुनने हम सब तत्पर सारे हैं। आपकी जोरदार तालियों के बीच मैं बड़े आदर से हमारे मुख्य अतिथि श्री सम्माननीय विंग कमांडर जगमोहन नाथ जी को मंच पर आमंत्रित करती हूँ कि वे अपनी दिव्य वाणी से आज यहाँ चेतना का नया सवेरा कर दें। हमारे चेयरमैन, वाइस चेयरमैन, उनको आग्रह करूँगी कि वे उन्हें सम्मान से मंच पर लेकर आए। धन्यवाद।
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am totally speechless with the facilitation which you have accorded to me, and my throat, my voice is shaking, and my eyes are wet. I can tell you that, the way you have projected me at this point in time. And I have my heartiest thanks, not only to you all, but to the organizers and to the President, Mr. Pugalia, and also Mr. Agarwal. And I'm absolutely amazed at the setting which I see here. I never imagined it will be anything like this. And I feel the celebration which you are have recorded at this time will beat anything anywhere, even in Nariman Point, where the governor is now as the chief guest. Well, I think already everybody has been informed, and they're well aware of the significance of the Republic Day. One has to look back to the history of how this event took place. And I was looking into the internet, and I was very keen to see how the Republic Day was formed on the 26th of January. In fact, earlier on it was a dominion at the time of our independence given to us by the British. That was on 15th of August, as you know, but it was still a dominion. It was not a republic. It became a republic much later. In fact, the first Independence Day was in 1930, which was announced by the Congress Party when, and it was with a lot of frustration that they had announced the Independence Day in 1950 itself, because when the Congress Party had asked the government to accord us the dominion status, which meant that we still would have the Queen at our head, but at the same time we will run our own show. But that was rejected by the British government because they felt that they put across that we will not be able to manage ourselves. And that upset the Congress, and particularly Pandit Nehru at that time and Subhash Bose. These two stalwarts freedom fighters, they said that we will go in for a total independence and no dominion status. And that was on 24th of November. It was 29th, year was 1929. And at that time, they decided that we should declare our Independence Day on the following month, which was January, on the last Sunday. And that happened to be the 26th. And that is how the 26th January came into being. And subsequently, of course, lots have happened. And we have celebrated our the Republic Day in many ways, many places, and particularly at our capital city, New Delhi, where there is as you are well aware, that a big ceremony takes place, which is totally fantastic, actually, with the Rashtrapatis commencing everything by laying the wreath at the Amar Jawan Jyoti, and subsequently, forgive me, I have a bad throat here. And at that time, it starts with the laying of the wreath, as you know, by the president. And what is most heartening is that the show actually starts by putting the armed forces in the front. And that itself is a matter of great satisfaction for me, particularly as it must be with you as well. The armed services have to be projected to our countrymen. And our countrymen are very receptive, because when you go around on the road, and I was driving down today, the little children, so many of them say, giving away our flag to everyone down the line. So the country is receptive where the armed services are concerned, and they give them a lot of regard and a lot of due. Unfortunately, the government has got lost in its own activity or their own priorities, but the armed services do definitely need to be protected. And I am very glad in the manner in which you have done this, and I feel it should be a role model for the whole country. I could say something about our flag as well, but I think the flag, as you know, the Indian flag was originally started in 1906, and then it was repeated again in 1907. The colors kept changing from, first it was red on top and then green below, then it changed in the next year to other way around. And then again that was, I think it was Madam Kama who unfurled the Indian flag as designed at that time, and it was in Calcutta, as a place called Parsi Bagan Square, or the Green Park. That is when the first Indian flag was hoisted, and that was so many years ago, 1906. Then it was again repeated in 1907, and then subsequently we were given a home rule, and another flag came into being, and this flag was very unusual, and this was numerous stripes were there, unlike the earlier one where we had only 3, green, white, and red or saffron. This was with the red and green stripes, and on top on the left-hand corner was the Union Jack. And that is how the flag was permitted, but because we accepted the home rule, it was by Annie Besant, and Annie Besant was the one who hurled that flag at that particular time, and that was in 1921. And then subsequently the flag was changed, and it became the Congress flag with the spinning wheel right in the middle. And that was, earlier on it was red on top, and it was white in the middle, and then green. And subsequently it was changed on 22nd of August and 47th. Oh, so my grandson tells me I have to tell you something about my own self. Well, I don't want to blow my trumpet. Apne gun nahi gaata main. But the accord which you, the facilitation which you have given to me, I feel, is because of the 2 Mahavir Chakras which have come my way. I never imagined that I would get them, but the how I got them, I think it's a matter of luck to be in the right place at the right time. And I'm quite clear in my mind that where our armed services are concerned, every Jawan, every officer of the Air Force, Army and Navy, put them in the right place at the right time, like where I was, and they would be no less. They would all be Mahavir Chakras and Bar. I can tell you that. That is the pride and confidence I have in our armed services and our country. The first Mahavir Chakra which I got, I was very fortunate. I happened to be the only one from the Air Force, because the Air Force was not committed. The Chinese were playing up Helen to us. The government was complacent, and even the army was complacent at that point of time. And we had enough intelligence with us that the Chinese are knocking at our door. and they mean business. But in spite of that, we became very complacent. And even though the government was approached that if you launch the Air Force now, the Chinese are all in the open ground of Aksai Chin and the other areas behind the Nifa. And the Air Force could pick up each and every soldier without any problem, because they had no shelter where to hide, unlike if you are in the forest land. And Air Force would have been the right arm to be used at that time, and I am very confident that we would have had Aksai Chin with us today, and we would never had any problems in Nifa. Well, the first embassy that came my way, again very lucky, in 1962. Then came the 1965 Indo-Pak conflict of the war, and I was with a reconnaissance squadron. I was with them for almost 8 years. I was flying reconnaissance aeroplanes which took aerial photographs with telephoto lenses from the heights of even 48,000 feet. They would be able to take pictures to such an extent that even a car number plate could be read in the photographs. So they imagined it was such sophisticated cameras we had with us. And we were taking reconnaissance photographs of wherever a threat developed. The army would never even plan anything or never even indulge in any activity across our borders without first having some intelligence. And you can imagine, which was absolutely natural, because without knowing what you are facing, you can't do anything in the right way. So my unit was involved in every armed activity or any threat we developed anywhere around the country. So I feel that Squadron 106 SR, Strategic Reconnaissance Squadron, did really a lot of wonders for the country. But it just so happened they were in the right place at the right time. In 65, before 65 itself, we were taking a lot of photographs of the border with Pakistan, starting from the north, from Kashmir, where the ceasefire line is there. And Pakistan at that time, they launched what they called the Operation Gibraltar. And the Operation Gibraltar was planned by, I believe, Mr. Bhutto was involved somewhere in it. And also it was by Ayub Khan himself and another general called General Malik. So between them they decided, and amazingly enough, they kept the Air Force Noor Khan totally out of picture. And they launched the Gibraltar with thousands of soldiers dressed up as Kashmiris, and they felt that once they get into Kashmir, the public is going to be with them, and which never happened, and it was a total failure. When that happened, then the next thing what they did was to start the operation, what they called Operation Grand Slam. And Operation Grand Slam was near Chamjori and Akhnur. They launched their tanks, because the tanks, Sialkot is very close to that part, and that's where the tank factories and so on there. So they put on the tanks there. And the army was still not ready, although we had been taking photographs and they had all the information, because I had been doing milk runs over the whole area during that time when Gibraltar operation was on. And they got totally surprised at that point of time, and the only way they could have any help was from the Air Force. So they asked the Indian Air Force to come and give them a hand, which the Air Force did a great job from Pathankot. And the aeroplane which were there were the elementary aeroplanes called Vampires. And they were not as advanced as they are like Sabres and the other aeroplanes. And they went in and they destroyed numerous tanks at that time, and the Pakistan army came to a halt. And that time the army then approached Noor Khan, who had not been kept in the picture, can you come to our rescue now? And they launched their sabers. And sabers were far more sophisticated, and they shot down quite a few of our vampires. That is the sad part of the story, but thereafter we improved our strikes by putting misters and so on. And the army at that point felt that they were having a little more of a rough time in Chamjori and Akhnur, and they were thinking very seriously of starting a second front, which will be somewhere in the south near Lahore on this side, which will draw their forces from the north downwards. Once that was to happen, yours truly was called. I was asked to come down to Pathankot, and at Pathankot, when I arrived there at that place, I was briefed. He said, you have to take photographs of Ichogal Canal, where the army, that's the army's Maginot Line, and they're very heavily fortified in that place. So we have to see which is the weakest point where we can start our operations. So you have to do the aerial reconnaissance photographs of Ichogal Canal. Then you have to go to Lahore and see if they have got anything there, Lahore airport, and go to Sargodha. And you do this and come back. And we will give you an escort of 2 MiG aeroplanes in case the Pakistani Air Force takes you on. But the MiGs will help you only if you are chased into our country. They will not enter into Pakistan at all. Can you just imagine that is how I was told. They said because the government has not permitted us to start the air war. And the initiative is left to the Pakistan Air Force, and the arrangement at the top level is that we'll try and keep the operations limited. But the way things were happening in Chamjori and Akhnur, the way they were shooting down our aeroplane, we were in conflict with the sabers. It was obvious that something is going to happen. And I think extending my story a bit too long, I don't know if it is of any interest at this point of time. But my flights, which I used to do, numerous flights from the time I started, but the flights I did quite a few over Pakistan. And what I used to do was I used to fly much lower than these buildings, almost 100 feet, so that the radar, Pakistan radar, would not pick me up. And I would first go to, the flight would take something about 2.5 to 3 hours to go into Pakistan. So I first used to take off from Agra, that's where I was based. I used to go to an SU near Amritsar, which is called the 230 SU. And that was commanded by a very close friend of mine, Wing Commander Dandapani, his name. So I had already an arrangement with him that I will do an orbit over your SU at treetop level. Still nobody can see me from Pakistan. And when I do that, you change onto one frequency, because the frequency on which we'll be talking was the standard frequency, so we'll go on to another secret frequency so that even Pakistan doesn't know what is happening. And there onward, I would tell him where I'm going to make an entry into Pakistan. And he used to put the radar surveillance in that part of the area. And I used to tell him that in case you see any opposition coming from the other end, you give me a support, and then I'll turn back. But this was the way I used to operate, and I used to go low level, build up my speed, and then before the target I will shoot up go up to a height of about 12,000 feet, where the aeroplane speed would wash off. It would be just about staggering at that point of time, but very good for the cameras because the speed was low and they'd take pictures. After 10 minutes, I used to just dive down and come back low level again. But this flights for Ichhogal Canal and Lahore and Sargodha, I was specially briefed that you will do nothing of that sort. You just stay at height and do that because we have the MiGs at this end. Now, it was a very stupid thing because the MiGs can't enter into Pakistan. And I am exposed totally, and I had no other option, but I operated my flights in the same way. And lo and behold, after I finished Sargodha, and when I was heading back towards Amritsar and to our country, in Canberra you have a tail radar. The tail radar scans your tail, everything behind. It's called an orange putter. The orange putter gives you the navigator has a look at it. It's a screen there which has got a grid on it, and the grid, the targets at the back will appear like a blip, and you get a horn so you know that something is happening, and you keep monitoring where that fellow is. And at this point of time, my navigator yelled out, he says, as you can hear the horn, there's one guy there behind us, and I can see him. He was still about 15-20 miles away. And at that time, then he said, there is another blip and another. And there were total 4 blips which turned up on that. So there were 4 sabers which were behind me. And all the sabers at that time used to be carrying heat-seeking missiles called the sidewinders. And for sidewinders, you had to first have the target aeroplane absolutely steady for at least 5 to 10 seconds, almost that much, for the missile to lock on. And once the missile locks on and you get the indication in the cockpit, you press the button and the missile goes chasing the heat source and gets you. There's no way of getting out from it. So the only answer was to try and not be steady for that period of time when they are within range. And so I had no other option. The only way to do was to keep turning. If I keep turning, I don't go anywhere else, and I'm still stuck over Pakistan. So at that time, I just improvised, which is not, Canberra is not usually an aerobatic aeroplane. It's basically a bomber interdictor. So I started doing aerobatics on it. The aerobatics involved a barrel roll. A barrel roll is a combination. This is a roll going like this, and this is a loop. So the aeroplane does a loop. This is if you do like this and keep moving, it's called a barrel roll. So I started doing barrel roll towards Amritsar, and that would not give the sabers a chance for me to be steady and for them to launch the missiles. Unfortunately for me at that point of time, the 230 SU, with whom I used to always keep in contact, he was left out of this briefing earlier on, and he didn't know that I was on to my usual run. And he saw once I started doing this and I was heading very close to the border. At that point, the sabers moved off, and I was quite relieved, and I settled down straight. And 230 SU looked at me, he said, later on, we thought 5 Pakistani aeroplanes are coming, and then only 1 is coming. And as I entered there, so they launched our own aeroplane to get me down. So 2 misters were headed off to shoot me down. But fortunately for me, I was doing very tight turns because I knew I was of our own country, no barrel rolls. They couldn't put their guns, the sights on in front because the Canberra turned very, very tight compared to the misters. So, but when they overshot, they saw the Indian marking. And that saved my skin, you see. And I met these guys later on. And they said, you came very close, you know. If we had got a sight on you, we were not coming anywhere near, we were going to shoot you down before. And that was a very lucky one for me. And I, of course, landed I ran out of fuel at that time with all this exercise. And when I landed right in the midst of gnats being brought in from Jm and Nath. They had priority for landing, but I had no fuel. I just cut in and landed. And as I got into the dispersal, my one engine flamed out because there was no fuel. So it was the closest flight which I had. And my second Mahavir Chakra was awarded on that day, 1st of September 1965. And believe you me, that flight gave a lot of dividend to the army, because the reconnaissance pictures taken over Chugal Canal, they knew Barki was the place which is the weakest point, and they launched their operation through Barki. And they got all the way through. And they also, at that time, the Pakistan army and everybody moved slightly north, and Lahore sector was left empty, and we moved in from Lahore as well. And we were 13 miles from Lahore when we got the message that the army has to come back, because I think various things happened in the top order that we cannot carry on with it, because ceasefire has to be declared. So these people went back. But this is the story, and there are numerous stories of my heading towards Quetta, which is the furthermost place, the airfield called Samangli, taking pictures there, and those fighters taking off from the Wapi. Good God, I will carry on like this, but thank you very much now. I'm getting I don't know, I've gone a little out of line. Thank you. Thank you once again, and God bless all of you, and keep pushing the armed services and the Air Force right in the forefront as much as you can, whenever you can. It's not me who matters. What matters is our services, the armed services. So just remember that. Thank you.
सर, आपके अनमोल वचनों के लिए